Call to order. I think Artie, we're expecting him momentarily. Otherwise, we're all present. Minutes for the January meeting. Anybody have any comments, edits?
Move to approve the minutes from our January meeting.
Do I have a second? A first and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January? All right, excellent. Organizational and procedural items, not to my knowledge. There's no unfinished business as well this month, so we'll proceed to new business. But before we do, I'll read the zoning board's preamble. We have to read every month. The zoning board of appeals is charged with the responsibility of granting variances to ordinance requirements after determining whether there exists an undue hardship upon an applicant. In determining whether or not to grant a variance, the board shall apply the criteria specified in the city code of ordinances to the facts of each case. The zoning board of appeals does not create zoning, nor can it change zoning. Matters brought before the zoning board of appeals are to be concerned only with variances from requirements of the zoning ordinance, the sign ordinance, and development and environmental ordinance. The board has no authority to grant variance for use, density, or height. Further, the board hears cases requesting an appeal to a staff interpretation on these same ordinances. And final decisions here this evening of the zoning board of appeals may be appealed by petitioning the Superior Court of DeKalb County within 30 days after the decision here is rendered. With that, we'll move on to first case, ZBA 23-22. Staff, would you please walk us through?
Thank you. So they are requesting a variance from chapter 27, section 267 to allow a 6-foot tall security fence in a street yard. So the subject lot is zoned R100. It's 5.7 acres and it's currently developed with a synagogue. The two photos are of the street yard facing Winners Chapel Road. As part of a larger chain link fence project that will enclose the entire property, the applicant proposes to construct a 6-foot tall spearhead metal fence and 2 vehicular gates to the front of the synagogue. The project is for security purposes and they have obtained FEMA funding. In residential zoning districts, fences, located in street yards may not exceed 4 feet in height, prompting the variance request. The site plan to the left shows the proposed 6-foot tall spearhead metal fence in green, the rest of the chain link fence in red, and the 2 proposed security gates in purple. No part of the fence between the building and the street will be built as a chain link fence. The design of the fence and of the gates is shown to the right. So a fence is a typical, relatively minor improvement to a property in a residential zoning district, and the project, which proposes a fence height only 2 feet taller than what is allowed per code, appears to be the minimum necessary to accommodate the improvements to the property. For comparison, there is no maximum fence height for institutional uses outside the residential districts. The front yard fence height limitations intent is to regulate fences for single-family homes. The proposed project would not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other similarly situated properties. Both the Marcus Jewish Community Center and Congregation Ariel, you might remember their variance from last year, are also located in the R100 zoning district and also have a 6-foot tall fence and security gate in the street yard. While places of worship are allowed with residential zoning districts with a special land use permit, they often have unique conditions compared to single-family homes. They face an increase in the number of people frequenting the property and have additional security and safety needs. The applicant has been awarded a nonprofit security grant from FEMA for the purpose of strengthening safety at the property. Without accounting for the unique safety needs of the property, the strict application of the fence regulations could prevent reasonable use of the property as a place of worship, which staff considers a practical difficulty. Additionally, the design of the fence allows for an adequate stacking distance and will prevent cars from blocking the sidewalk. Overall, staff finds that the project would enhance public health, safety, and welfare by providing additional security for the property, and that the request meets the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance. Based on these reasons, staff is recommending approval with the following 4 conditions, conditioning them to the site plan, saying that construction needs to start within 2 years, and in the last 2 for requiring the security gates to open inwards toward the property and for there to be at least 20 feet of distance between the back of the sidewalk and the security gate. That's to prevent cars from blocking the sidewalk. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any initial questions?
Just to clarify, when you mentioned adequate stacking distance, what does that mean?
Yeah, that means essentially that the cars can pull forward without blocking the sidewalk. So that there's enough room for a car to be there waiting for the gate to open without encroaching onto the sidewalk.
And that's 20-foot requirement.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further? Would the applicant care to address the board or a representative? Just please state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Alan Kaplan. I represent Congregation Beth Shalom at 5303 Winters Chapel Road. In my capacity as a member of the Board of Trustees. Just appreciate your consideration of the application this evening. As I think we're all aware of the need, unfortunately, in light of today's environment, to provide greater security for Jewish institutions and so forth. So just appreciate your consideration this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in favor of the application? All right, well, anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, with that, we'll close public opinion and board discussion. Thoughts?
It's a good plan. I think the fencing is good. I went by Congregation Aerial today. I've drove past it and it's the same. I think I think they did a good job.
Sarah, give me a motion.
From chapter 27, section 267, to allow a 6-foot tall security fence in a street yard with the following conditions. Number one, construction of the fence and security gates must be in substantial compliance with the submitted site plan. See Appendix A. Number two, if construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void. Number three, the security gates shall open inwards towards the property only. Number four, there must be at least 20 feet of distance between the back of the sidewalk on Winters Chapel and the security gates.
All right. We have a second.
Second.
First and second on the floor. All those in favor?
Hi.
It's passed unanimously. Thank you. Proceeding, second case of this evening, ZBA 22-23.
Thank you. So they are requesting a variance from chapter 27, section 272 2D to allow relief from the fencing material requirements. So the subject lot is zoned RCD, that's Residential Community Development District. That's one of our obsolete zoning districts that just still exists in the code, but it might be a little bit unfamiliar given that we don't have many that are zoned that way. It's 4.8 acres and it is developed as a common area for the Brook Farm subdivision with a lake, several tennis courts and pools, and common buildings. In August 2023, the Community Development Department received a code enforcement complaint about a new fence at 2425 Little Brook Drive. The new fence, which replaced a portion of a previously existing fence, is an 8-foot tall galvanized chain link fence. The applicant is also proposing to replace the rest of the existing fence surrounding the property with the same 8-foot tall galvanized chain link fencing. Section 27-272 2D of the city's code specifies that chain link fencing must be either black or green vinyl coated, which prompts a variance request for the fence material. The site plan is shown to the left. The orange line shows the recently completed fence and the blue line shows the existing fence that the applicant is requesting to match the recently completed fence. So just to clarify, they're requesting a variance for the whole thing to keep what's existing and to replace the rest of the fence as shown in that blue line. The photo on the top right shows the recently completed fence, and the photo on the bottom left shows the portion of the fence that will be replaced to match the recently completed fence. The bottom right, that portion of the fence is 6-foot tall chain link with barbed wire on top. Just as a quick note, a portion of the existing fence which crosses a stream is located in the future conditions floodplain. The applicant is not proposing to replace this portion, but they may make repairs or do maintenance work without the need for a variance in that specific section. So a fence is a typical relatively minor improvement to a property in a residential zoning district, and this project appears to be the minimum necessary to accommodate the shared amenity space of the subdivision. The existing fence, which is likely over 40 years old, is deteriorating and in need of improvement, prompting the recently completed replacement. The recently completed fence and the proposed fence will match in terms of height and fence materials, ensuring a uniform appearance. Overall, staff finds that the project would enhance public health, safety, and welfare, and that the request meets the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance. Based on these reasons, we're recommending approval of the request with our 2 standard conditions. We received a fair amount of correspondence for this. There were 35 letters in support that were included in the packet and 2 letters in opposition that were emailed out earlier this week. And I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Initial staff questions?
Yeah, just one, the chain link, so it's allowed, but it has to be galvanized chain is allowed, but it has to be coated and a
Correct.
green or black. Can you just describe is that just an aesthetic thing? Is there a functional purpose?
Yeah, so vinyl coating sort of prevents rust a bit better than just a galvanized fence would. And it's also an aesthetic thing. So it's both of those.
I have a staff question. How as a city have we communicated that to residents? So the question I have is this, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, when they present, is they had a contractor come in. So they started to replace an existing fence. So how does the staff better communicate that? So contractors, just like we do with pools, when we find out they're not doing it to code, how do we make sure our codes are being communicated into the city? That's a
Yeah.
question.
So that's a good question. So this is the first sort of fencing material requirement that I've seen for zoning board of appeals in the 3 years that I've been here. So I don't think it happens all that often. When we review fences for a fence permit, we try to catch things like that. There are fences that you can do without a permit. And in that case, we do have a blurb on our website that sort of encourages applicants to reach out to us just to confirm whether or not they need a permit for their fencing.
Thanks.
Right. Okay, no, very well. Would the applicant care to address the board and state their case?
Hello. My name is Lizette Warren, and I represent Brook Farm Homeowners Association. I live at 5097 Brook Farm Drive. I'm a 10-year resident and a recent HOA president. We are seeking a variance to allow relief from fencing material requirements. The fence in question is a perimeter fence in a densely wooded area behind our pool and tennis court area. Bill Grant, one of the Brook Farm developers, can attest the chain link fence predates the development of Brook Farm some 40 years ago. Brook Farm is one of the few neighborhoods with only one entrance and exit. Our perimeter fence serves as a deterrent to individuals desiring to inflict vandalism and destruction to our amenities and homeowners. In 2022, the board made the decision to replace the fence as it was in disrepair, unsightly after years of vandalism, destruction, and general wear and tear. To date, we have spent approximately $30,000 on this project. This is a tremendous expenditure, especially for an HOA. The HOA viewed the project as a fence repair and did not believe a permit was required. We employed a respected fencing company and utilized commercial grade materials to ensure a high quality product. We believe the fence would be a welcome improvement. To this end, we made the decision to not use barbed wire chain link, as was done with the original fence. We have worked actively with city officials to reach an agreeable solution to this matter. We request that the appeals board grant this variance to allow the fence to remain as is and allow us to replace the remaining original fence with the like material, thereby ensuring a high quality and consistent uniform appearance. Thank you for your service to the community. I believe our application in the city staff memo covers everything. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now there's several cards here. I will preface this with saying that there's 10 minutes for those who want to speak in favor and 10 minutes to those who want to speak in opposition in aggregate. So we'll be keeping it pretty tight on that. So the first person that I have public comment card is Bob Hickey.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to have my statement. My name is Bob Hickey. I'm a citizen of Dunwoody and have been for almost 50 years. I've lived in Brook Farm for the past 28 years. I am in favor of ZBA 2323 variance request by the HOA of the Brook Farm subdivision. The HOA represents 269 homes in the subdivision and over 500 citizens and voters. I am not on the HOA board and therefore I speak only as an interested citizen and resident. The Brook Farm subdivision is a one street in and a one street out subdivision with a flock license plate reader that takes the license plates of any car that comes into the subdivision and out of the subdivision. And this system has been used, directly wired into the Dunwoody Police Department, and it was used by the Dunwoody Police Department to capture a bad guy who was reported driving a stolen car, and our license plate reader reported it back to the Dunwoody City Police. The safety system has been operative for several years, and our HOA pays for this annual system from the annual homeowners dues. The sole entrance street is about 7/10 of a mile from the subject fence at the rear of the subdivision. The fence affords significant protection from intrusion into our neighborhood from any pedestrian and other persons who might harm our residents or do damage to their facilities or the common facilities of the recreation facilities adjacent to the fence. A significant portion of our residents live in this community because of the safety afforded the one-way street, the flock license plate reader, and this fence, okay? The variance application, as you can see, generated a significant interest from our citizens, 35 letters for, and then 2 representatives who were against it in support of the system. Almost a third of the letters cited their safety concerns as the reason that they were in favor of this fence. For these reasons, I request your favorable vote to approve the variance requested in ZBA 2323. But most important, I thank you for your time and service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment card I have is Jack Lane.
Thank you. My name is Jack Lane. I've lived in Brook Farm for about 20 years. I've lived in Dunwoody for 40 years. Quite frankly, I'm just here to ask you to please consider the variance. My comments are going to be somewhat, if not totally, repetitive. Actually, let's go with totally repetitive. Okay, so just ask you to approve it. I believe that the fence is valued as security for the neighborhood. Replacing it would also be very expensive for us. 30,000 already invested, replacing something that we don't believe needs to be replaced, when in fact, we believe it's already great and it was really only repaired, not considered replacement anyhow. And we think we've already improved on it. It was a dilapidated, trust me, a dilapidated mess before with barbed wire on top of it. And it is clearly aesthetically much nicer than it was. And I think it was repaired in a terrific manner. I'm no longer on the board, but I think the board did a great job with it. And I'd like to thank you ahead of time for your approval. Thanks.
Thank you. Last public comment card I have is in favor is Martin Bradley.
My name's Martin Bradley. I live on Little Brook Way in Brook Farm. I've lived there since 2001. I frankly have nothing particularly additional to add to this than other than being strongly in favor. I know the fence, it's not even that visible, frankly, amongst the woods back there. I don't think it would be fair to incur a lot of expense on the homeowners association to change something that's basically good in the way it is already. And thank you for your time today, and I appreciate you supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. As I have no further comment cards in favor, we'll close the comment for in favor and then open it for the public comment in opposition. And the first one I have is Amanda Hensley.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on this. You may have noticed that my remarks did not make the packet. Once we figured out the process, I did call in early January. I'm still learning.
Excuse me, Amanda, well, I forgot your card, but would you mind stating your address for the record? Thank you.
Yes, I was getting to that.
I'm sorry.
Amanda Hensley, sorry, 5246 Waterford Drive, resident for 30 years. My husband's been here most of his life. So we got comments together as quickly as we could. Unlike Brook Farm, we are not an HOA. So when these things come up, it's a grassroots effort to survey the affected neighbors. And this is just what I could collect from those neighbors really in the past 48 hours almost. We are opposed to the variance with a caveat. On behalf of Waterford Drive homeowners, we request the variance be granted only for the recently completed repair. This is the orange line in the site plan, not the remaining old fence, which is the blue line in the site plan. Again, we don't want the fence they just put up to be torn down. We don't want that. The 8-foot galvanized chain link fence is rather unsightly and was not a welcome addition to Waterford Park. The fence is seen from several Waterford homes. This was incorrectly stated in one letter sent in favor. You do see it from some Waterford homes. In general, no one wants to see an 8-foot galvanized chain link fence in a residential area like Dunwoody. The city's current fence codes reflect that desire. We do understand the unique situation and history with this property / fence and are just as concerned about security as our Brook Farm neighbors. We are also a 1 street in, 1 street out development, very small one. Waterford homeowners simply request the HOA find a fencing solution that addresses their security concerns and complies with current city fence codes. Any more such fencing beyond the recently completed repair would indeed be imposing on neighboring properties. And that's the blue line in the site plan on the Waterford side. As stated in the variance application, the fence was erected to replace the existing fence, which had become dilapidated and had been vandalized going back many years. Presumably, the HOA increased the height to 8 feet to enhance security and further deter trespassers. Unfortunately, the fence was vandalized within a few weeks, and Brook Farm appealed to the city to help secure this area. In direct response, the city erected an additional fence within a few months, a 6-foot black spearhead fence, the type used in Brook Run Park, where it abuts residential areas. It's unfortunate to some of us that the HOA did not work with the city before erecting the fence. That would have saved the HOA the expense, and the city's fence would have looked much nicer. The black fence also seems more secure than chain link, but I don't have the mind of a vandal, so perhaps I shouldn't speculate. The black fence, so now we have 2 fences between Brook Farm and Waterford with an oddly shaped and inaccessible dead space in between. I had sent pictures, and again, I apologize that my remarks didn't make the packet, and I don't know if you were able to see what I had sent. It was a lot of photos that I took. The HOA addendum to their letter of intent, which was sent later in January, further requests a variance for the quote entire perimeter fence as necessary, end quote. Waterford homeowners would prefer the existing fence that runs along the back property lines of Little Brook Farm, Dunwoody Close, and Waterford homes to remain as is. I can explain. Or we would welcome the opportunity to have constructive dialogue about the fence along this shared boundary. Waterford homeowners are concerned about security in this area, very much so, and we were very disappointed to see the new fence vandalized. Our neighborhood association, not an HOA, of which I'm a board member, has communicated these concerns to homeowners in Waterford. We've asked everyone to remain vigilant in and around the park and report any suspicious activity to police. The police were called on one such occasion not long after the fence incident. They responded promptly. The situation was addressed. Police encounters like this in combination with active and vigilant neighbors will help deter future vandalism. So the Brook Farm HOA has, rightly so, asked the city of Dunwoody to be a good neighbor. Those of us in Waterford who share the fence line simply ask the same of Brook Farm. To consider those on the other side who share many of Brook Farm's concerns when making decisions on fence construction and material. And that concludes my basic comments. I had sent those in yesterday or the night before. I had some additional questions that had come up with just in speaking with neighbors in the past few days, and I was told that I could ask these. So the first is that if the main reason for approval is to spare Brook Farm the expense of a tear down and rebuild, absolutely, we agree 100%. We don't want the fence to be torn down. It's there, leave it. Then why not enforce the code for any remaining portions of fence? The entire perimeter is not being granted this variance, and that was, I think, specifically requested. So it seems that at some point along the fence line, the look will change. It won't be uniform. So why not have that change be at the corner of the existing linear 320-foot section and not break in the middle of another linear section? The existing segment, the one they just replaced, is the only section that borders the city park. So that seems a natural break. And it makes it different than other fence segments that do border neighboring properties. And also, if the variance is approved as recommended, is the board concerned about setting a precedent for other Dunwoody property owners who might want to erect a fence that doesn't meet code? For example, a home or business owner who doesn't want to go to the expense of vinyl coating and puts up a chain link fence because they think once it's built, the city won't make them tear it down. Or is this more seen as a unique situation because the fence borders a shared amenity and not just private homes on both sides? In which case, maybe buyer beware. From a neighbor who couldn't attend, they wanted me to specifically ask, is it a possibility that Brook Farm could paint the new fence segment to meet code and to match the existing fences that are in their shared amenity area surrounding their pool and tennis courts? I believe they're a black color and they look nice. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We still have some time left, so we can recognize Danica Henry.
Hello, thank you very much. My name is Danica Henry and I live at 5236 Waterford Drive, and I've lived in the Waterford neighborhood for about 20 years. We very much respect the need for security. All we ask is that Brook Farm follow the code. The code was created for a reason. If an exception is provided now, what's to stop another new fence from being constructed not following code? And if fence is added like the new one, what's to prohibit in stating that it's uniform? What's to prohibit, once that's created, from more fence that may be dilapidated being extended beyond the part that's behind the Brook Farm swim tennis? And then also saying, well, we'd like that to be uniform too. So now we have a chain link fence that's now been created and extended, and now we have more fence that needs to be replaced. So I just ask you to take that into consideration. And the area where the fence, where they're asking for adding more fence right now, replacing, is right behind homes. And it's not densely wooded, and all you see is a chain link fence. And it's not very aesthetically pleasing. And I just ask, would any of you like all of a sudden to have an 8-foot chain link fence galvanized in the back of your yard to look at every day when you're sitting outside? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's the only comment cards we have. So I'll close it to public comment, open it to board comment.
Oh, can we have that picture again? The one that shows the old fence and the new fence? Okay.
Staff, can I ask? Where the blue line, I guess where the whole fence is. To the northern part, and I can't see the property numbers. But above the blue line, kind of at the top and to the right side of the orange line, and then kind of the right side of that smaller blue line. Those are homes in Waterford or Brook Run? That's Waterford, right?
Waterford, yeah, and behind the orange line is Waterford Park. If that helps orient you.
Okay, yes, thank you. And then I also wanted to ask before speakers offer the suggestion. If the additional fence, the blue portions that are hoping to be replaced, I guess that's where the current barbed wire portions are that are in disrepair. Could those be done in the black or green material? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, like, is it possible to have different types of material adjoining each other?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, well, let me.
I mean, it's on. It's been on, is it not? Technical difficulties.
We heard you.
Okay, the green light is on in my defense.
Yeah, no, you're good. So, so I'm thinking about this and I listened to the opposition. It seems as if no one wants to disrupt the part that's already there. Or maybe the second person wanted to have them conform, but the overall arching idea is that, listen, I don't think the Brook Farm homeowners intended not to comply initially, but they wanted to protect and replace something that was dilapidated. So now the question for us is, all right, so do we want to force Brook Farm to have a different type of fencing than what they've already have there? I mean, I'm looking at it, it might be different, but it just doesn't look to me as if it's something that's unsightly as opposed to what it was like and maybe barbed wire. And the cost, and I would have more of a problem if I had one homeowner that's not in compliance, but this is an HOA where people probably collected their money or wherever their money is, and then that's what you have.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't think it's something that I want to force the entire HOA to do something different, over something like this.
my question is, I agree with the fact that I think they were going in with the best of intentions and right, just replacing a dilapidated fence. But I've heard it's a shared area, and this might be a question for city staff. The fence is being installed on whose property line? The HOA with, the
Yeah,
HOA?
it's on HOA
so,
property.
So my whole point is, certainly empathetic to the opposition. Anytime change happens, it can be an aesthetic thing. You're looking at something different. We've had plenty of cases like this. But if it's on your property line, you're doing it for a shared purpose of safety is a primary reason between both parties. It's kind of a
Yeah,
We're not.
and then the last thing I wanted to say is that so that the opposition doesn't feel like we didn't listen. I didn't listen to them. Is that yeah, each case is looked at on a unique basis, at least of this, independent. And with that, believe me, over the years, I've been there. People come in and they think I'm the board of forgiveness. I'm like, no, buddy, you knew about it. See you later. you know? But that doesn't seem to be the case here. And so if Brook Farm decides that in the future, if this is granted, that they're gonna do the same thing over, I don't think it's gonna go too well over, at least with this board. So that's my 2 cents onto this. I think we should just.
The other thing I wanted clarification from with the city too is, you know, the claim about following code. So the variance, let's just, if you can clarify, the variance is because the materials, not necessarily the height. What the trigger of the variance is the materials, not the height, right?
Correct.
Because sometimes it's 6 feet, sometimes it's 8 with the height.
Good
Correct.
question, good question.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can have 8 feet because it's completely to the rear of the property. It's
Okay.
not in a street yard.
Okay.
So it's just the materials,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Because that's a street yard.
And the assumption, at least in my eyes, is going from 6 to 8 feet is, again, it's a added layer of security. I mean, fences aren't foolproof, you know, but, you know.
Can I ask why the city put in another fence? Because that I don't understand.
Good evening, I'm Richard McLeod. The city Parks Department put it in once we acquired Waterford Park from the request of the homeowners.
Okay.
Any other comments? Motions?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the request for a variance from chapter 27, section 272, 2D to allow relief from fencing material requirements with the following conditions. Construction must be in substantial compliance with submitted site plan, Appendix A. If construction has not commenced within 2 years of the granting of this variance, approval shall be void.
Second.
First and second. All those in favor? One opposed? Chair opposes. It passes. Other business? Public comment we already had.
I have something very brief.
Yes.
This is that I want to introduce everyone to Barrett Alexander. He's
Oh,
our
nice.
new planning tech. He's been with us since November 2023. So you all should expect to see him around here a bit more often.
Hi, Barry.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Would you, where you come from? Where were you previously?
Yes, I came from GDOT.
Oh, okay, yeah. Great.
Glad to have you.
Congrats and welcome.
Thank you.
All right, public comment is closed and board comment. I think we have some.
I need a microphone.
You do need a microphone, yeah.
I'll scoot over here. So. Okay, so I would like to make a statement. I think a few of us that I've talked to feel the same way, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but the January 18th issue of the Dunwoody Crier included 2 articles that referenced our January 4th ZBA meeting that I feel misrepresented the approval that we issued for that case. For a case that was presented at that meeting, it was ZBA 23-20. This particular case requested a special exemption from chapter 27, section 147.3 to allow relief from contextual lot characteristics standards in a proposed 3-lot subdivision at 5383 Tilly Mill Road. One of the Crier articles, there were 2, and one of them included a paragraph that stated, when the Zoning Board of Appeals eventually approved the developer's request for a variance, many residents were upset, and this is my point of contention, upset that the board left intact a requirement for the developer to build a section of the Tilly Mill Road multi-use path. The article then continued to say, ZBA Chair Joe Tuttle reminded residents throughout the meeting that decisions related to the trail master plan are not in the board's purview. A second article in the Crier stated about 50 residents turned out January 4th for a Dunwoody Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to oppose a condition requiring that a residential developer build a section of the trail as part of his plans for a 3-home neighborhood at 5383 Tilly Mill Road. So I would like to go on record as to reiterate that the case we discussed, ZBA 23-20, addressed contextual lot characteristics of the proposed new lots. As Joe reiterated, decisions related to the Trail Master Plan are not in our purview. We were not discussing the Trail Master Plan. That was not a component of ZBA 23-20. Our board did indeed approve the special exemption from the contextual lot characteristics standards as per staff's recommendation. So we did leave the staff's recommendations in place, but with a modification to staff's wording that did not assume a side path on the Tilly Mill Road frontage would be built or constructed. We also maintained the requirement to preserve the 44-inch oak tree and the critical root zone surrounding it should a side path be constructed. In fact, our exact wording was, should the side path on the Tilly Mill Road frontage be built or constructed, it must be routed or constructed to preserve the 44-inch oak tree as demarcated on an exhibit that was included in that case material. Should the side path be built or constructed, construction and disturbance of the side path within the critical root zone shall not exceed 25% of that area and shall utilize a root bridge construction method, which was also explained in the exhibit materials. As stated in our preamble that Joe reads at every meeting, our board exists to address variance requests to ordinance requirements. We cannot create or change ordinances. And as Joe mentioned during last month's meeting, we do not have any authority to make decisions regarding the Trail Master Plan. So as I stated at the beginning, I just wanted to go on record clarifying what we did indeed approve at the meeting and what that case did actually contain as far as a zoning variance request. Thank you.
No, thank you. No, it was evident that they wanted to make that a re-referendum of the whole path issue. That's not what was
We
in front
went
of us.
out of our way to show that we were part of it.
No, I was
Hey.
shutting that down, shutting that down for sure. No, yeah, so thank you for that. And I think we're good. I didn't know no other additional business. And with that, we're adjourned.
Tara, going against the tide today, Tara.
Well,